now transition back over, and now we're going to read Gradualism, and you will get the link to that essay right here. I got from the Anarchist Library. And right there. And oh yeah. That's also like a charity link. I put together a bunch of different charity links. There are a lot of people that like I know personally that say, I have this GoFundMe, I have this PayPal pool, I have these sort of things, I need the money, something like that. And others that like said, hey, since you're sharing these things, could you please like put this link, share this link, share this link. And so I finally just put them all together into like Google Doc, which also included other charitable causes like some Black Lives Matters, bail bondsmen, or links to other Google Docs as well for like other people in need. So don't feel bad if you don't have any extra money. A lot of us are like moving hand to mouth. I stopped buying more expensive hats just because of like I'm kind of like up there in credit card debt because I'm trying to help out my friends. So don't feel too bad if you can't help, but do share around the Google Doc if you could so inclined. Maybe if you know a great big sugar daddy, someone who's gotten the influx of like money, if that's the case, then share that around. And also, there's also the YouTube link for the podcast I'm part of, Social Justice Achlemy. Excuse me. I hope everyone's doing well. It seems like a good conversation. Thank you all for coming. I think I did shout out Taffy the Wolf first. Let's just shout out Dude Snaps. Let's see that it will work this time. If you're still sure, dudes. Yep, there it is. Just they were playing, just chatting. This is where. So thank you for all the coming. Let's continue on now to Errico Malatesta's Gradualism. From October 1925. So yes, the anarchist and in the anarchist revolution's preliminary articles from this time, blah, blah. So that's probably like when it's like published into a collection of things. From the Errico Malatesta, reading the freedom of the method of freedom. Yeah. Thank you for all coming, and now let's continue. In the course of those polemics which arises amongst anarchists as to the best tactics for it. Okay, I was just like, wait a minute, did I remember transition? Okay, yeah, I did. So good. To the best tactics for achieving or approaching the creation of an anarchist society, that there are useful and indeed necessary arguments when they reflect mutual tolerance and trust and avoid personal recommendations. It's this time where it's like my brain is just like, no, you know how to pronounce that thing, but I'm not telling you right now. No, you have to struggle to figure it out. Yes, you have heard how that word is pronounced before, but you're going to struggle for a little bit. I often get the thing. So it's a slight headache, but I'm doing fine. It often happens that some reproach others with being graduous, and they later reject the term as it were an insult. Yet the fact is that in the real sense of the word, and given the logic of our principles, we are all gradualists. And all of us, in whatever different ways has to be. It is true that certain words, especially in politics, are constantly changing their meanings and often assume that one is quite contrary to the original, logical, and natural sense of the term. Oh, I should put together the whole list of like political terms that Americans or the citizens of the imperialist corporations of white supremacy should not use until they actually can definitely be clear that they know how to pronounce them. Because like, yeah, this is like, because you would hear conservatives say that like socialism is terrible. It's just like it's in like the Medicare will be terrible because of socialism, and yet, but like they'll say like some progressives or like sock dems that will say no, socialism is good because it pays for the fire departments and pay for our roads, and I'm just like, that's not neither of those socialism. So. And many from liberals and leftists can criticize Bernie for calling himself a socialist, even though he's just a social democrat. But yeah, thus the word possibilitous is that's the word possibilitous. That's probably the shorter list, Lynn. What is the list of political terms that Americans use correctly? Oh, oh my God. Oh, vote? That's a good question. Oh, I should bring that up tomorrow on Social Justice Alchemy. Is there anyone of sound mind who seriously claimed into want and the impossible? Yet in France, the term became the special label of a section of the Socialist Party who were followers of the former anarchist Paul Prudence and more willing than others to renounce socialism in the pursuit of an impossible cooperation with bourgeoisie democracy. Side note, because like like I said, there's so many words that like Americans use very differently in the rest of the world. I've told this many times before, but I still love telling it. My friend lived on who co-hosts Social Justice Alchemy. When she got online and just like got to like Facebook and just social media, and when that sort of thing happened, she had no idea that Americans had a different term of what the libertarian is. Because in her French mind, libertarians are awesome. They're anarchists like she is. She's an anarcho-communist. And libertarian socialists are pretty much libertarians unless they're anarchists. So when she meet American libertarians, it was a straight culture shock. She was talking, oh, you're a libertarian. That's cool. And then she was like, what? What? How are you a libertarian? What? Or when she would see Americans talk about libertarians this, let's just like hating on them, which can concern the like libertarian party, as it were, and those kind of like right-wing libertarians. Like, yeah, it's just like, but she was just so confused until she finally learned, oh, they're just people who don't want to pay taxes. So that's why she calls those libertarians, right-wing libertarians, by a different word, lobitarians. With that said, Vermin Supreme is actually like pretty cool. A joke candidate, yes, for sure, which sometimes is kind of like okay to have joke candidates in like politics. Look at Lord Buckethead. But like Vermin Supreme, from what I understand, is at least an anarchist and says trans rights. So anyone that says trans rights is cool in my book. Go ahead and like say trans rights in the chat. Hold on. So anyway, I think, yeah, I did finish this section. Such too is the case with the word opportunist, who actually wants to be an inopportunist, and in such renounces what it might be able applied specifically to the followers of Granon. And here's the link here. Let's hope it like works. Excuse me. Leon Gravenet was a prominent Republican politician of the French Third Republic until his death in like 1882. Okay, and that works. It goes back, and it's still used in the pejorative sense to mean a person or a party without ideas or principles, guided by the base and short-term interests. Almost kind of like how Murray Rothbard kind of like reappropriated the word libertarian as well. But I think this is kind of like used to like put onto like people who are and just use as a slur because like, oh, you're an opportunist, huh? The same is true of the word transformist. Who would deny that everything in the world and in life involves and changes? Who today is not a transformer? Yet the word was used to describe the corrupt and short-term policies pioneered by the Italian Definists. And let's get the explanation for it. Augustinus Definius was an Italian prime minister 9 times between 1876 and 1887. During his uninterrupted premiership from 1881 to 1887, he changed his cabinet 5 times, supported by majorities that shifted from left to right based on short-term conveniences rather than long-term programs. I guess transformation is not always a good thing. Anyway. Would it be a good thing to put a break on the habit of like attributing to the words a meaning that is different from their original sense, which gives rise to such confusion and misunderstanding? But how to do it in another manner, particularly when the change in meaning is deliberately tactic on the part of politicians to disguise their inquisitive proposals behind fine words. Maybe it's true. Therefore, the word gradualist, as applies to anarchists, could end up, in fact, hey, that's the Neko, hello, doing a political stream, reading, right now I'm the third essay of reading Errico Malatesta's Gradualism, and everything's going well and going good. I hope everything's going well for you, Nas, and a little shout out, Nas, to Neko, because, like, I did saw, that's right, I was in the live chat of your stream last night, so everyone give Nas and Neko love if you don't already know who she is. I think everyone in here like knows who she is, but I got some new followers as well, so check out Nasty Echo and be nice to all my friends. Or no, wait, be kind. Oh, still peaceless. I mean, if any politician like it promises free pizzas for everyone, that'll be something. For those who want it, of course. But how are you going to pay for it? What's the problem? What do you do not understand about the word free? Anyway, I'll continue. It's, and I'm going to go back to here. Maybe it's true, therefore, yes, be kind to mine. I have pizzas, but they're only like the $1.50, like individual cheap microwave pizzas that like from the store, as it were. And it's kind of like, I honestly think it just like go up to like the $2 ones from Trentino's. It's kind of like, yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, I still ate the cheap pizza because it's like I can heat it in the toaster oven. It's a nice little crunchy. Yeah, it's just cardboard, but it's still pizza. Anyway, maybe it's true, therefore, that the word gradualism, as applied to anarchists, could end up, in fact, describing those who use the excuse of doing things gradually as and when they become possible. And then last analysis, do nothing at all. Either that or move, if they move at all, in a contrary direction to anarchy. If this is the case, the term has to be rejected, yet the real sense of gradualism remains the same. Everything in nature and in life changes by degrees. And this is in no sense less true of anarchy. It can only come about little by little. Step by step, day by day. I'm sorry. Little by little, step by step, day by day. That was a decent sitcom, Step by Step. Anyway. As I was saying earlier, anarchism is of necessity gradualist. Anarchy can be seen as absolute perfection, and it is right that this concept should remain in our minds like a beacon to guide our steps. I mean, who doesn't want to live in fully luxury automated gay space anarcho-communism? I certainly want to. Not going to happen in my lifetime, but let's get to as close to that as possible within my lifetime. I mean, but quite obviously, such is an ideal cannot be attained in one sudden leap from the hell of the present to the long for heaven of the future. The authoritarian parties, by which I mean those who believe it's both moral and expedient to impose a given social order by force, may hope, vain hope, that when they come to power, they can, by using the laws, decrees, and the grenomes, I apologize again for mispronouncing words I did not know how to pronounce, subject everyone indefinitely to their will. I believe it's right for me to rule with an iron fist for the benefit of all. Yeah. I mean, it's like Richard Nixon swore to his grave that he felt that the country would go to ruin if the Democrats win, which is why he ordered Watergate to happen. Yeah, so it's like, oh yeah, I have strong opinions about Richard Nixon and his racism and then the things he did. And yet at the same time, he also like passed the Clean Water Act and they created the APA and he did actually like do some good things, but he's still a monster. And helped start a neoliberalism for us. Thank you, Richard Nixon. Okay. But such hopes and wishes are inconceivable for the anarchists, since anarchists seek to impose nothing but respect for liberty and count on the force of perception and perceive advantages of free cooperations for the realization of their ideals. This does not mean I believe, as by way of polemic, one unscrupulous and ill-informed reformist paper will have me believe that to achieve anarchy, we must wait till everyone becomes an anarchist. I'll certainly do my best to try, but I understand not everyone's going to be a radical leftist like me. I wish more people would. That would be awesome. On the contrary, I believe, and this is why I'm a revolutionary, that under present conditions, only a small minority, favored by special circumstances, can manage to conceive what anarchy is. It would be wishful thinking to hope for a general conversation before a change actually took place in the flourish. It is precisely for this reason that I believe in the need to organize for the bringing about anarchy, or any rate that disagrees degrees of anarchy which would become gradually feasible. As soon as a sufficient amount of freedom has been won and a nucleus of anarchists somewhere exists that is both numerically strong enough and able to be self-sufficient and to spread its influence locally. I repeat, we need to organize ourselves to apply anarchy, or that degree of anarchy which becomes gradually possible. Since we cannot convert everybody all at once, and the necessaries of life and interests of propaganda do not allow us to remain in isolation from the rest of society, ways need to be found to put as much anarchy as possible into practice amongst people who are not anarchists, or who are only sympathetic. And I think this is why when I was a baby anarchist, new anarchist, I did the mistake of being like, we need a violent revolution, as it were, in a video game. That didn't go over well. It did not. No, it did not, and still doesn't go over well. Many Americans are conditioned to be against revolution. This part of why some people didn't want to vote for Bernie, because the Bernie Bros there certainly did not help. Yes, a lot of assholes there. But also it's just like there are some people who were just intellectually not in favor of the revolution, or TM revolution, as it were. But I do think that one of the best ways to get people to see your side of things is if you are volunteering already. So you're already doing good thing for as much as you can. Don't worry, because as we should all contribute to our ability. According to our ability, we should contribute what we can. And many people can. It's very understandable. I have many disabled comrades that wish can do that. But also don't burn yourself out. Practice self-care. Yeah. Which I wouldn't do so by taking a drink. But by volunteering in mutual aid societies, mutual aid disaster relief, food bombs, local organizing, even your local DSA, you can at least talk to people in that way, and don't come right out and try to convince them immediately. That might be your goal, but at least explain your position. Just say, here's how I see the world. Or even the radical thing of talking to your family members or your coworkers. This is actually true. Whenever people at work said, hey Jonathan, how are you doing? I would say, instead of saying, fine, how are you? I would say, yeah, I'm not going to shame people into voting, but I'm not going to be in favor of voting for the conservatives. Anyway, so I got a little distracted there. But so when people ask me, hey Jonathan, how do you? I say, I'm still thinking about how to bring about the socialist, communist, workers' revolution. And thus sometimes I start a conversation. No, my head is one, and I wear one. I like to dress up at one. So And I'm not going to confirm or deny if I commit to like any kind of like a piracy of like digital means. And actually, in some cases, I do buy from my things. I don't know why people want conservatives in the vote. Anyway, but I'll continue. The problem, therefore, is not whether there is a need to proceed gradually, but to seek the quickest and sincerest. Could I admit that to like admit that to Twitch that I'm a pirate? I don't know. In a video game, I'm talking about this all in Minecraft, as it were. The problem. The problem, therefore, is not whether there is a need to proceed gradually, but to seek the quickest way and sincerest way that leads to the realization of our ideals. Throughout the world today, the way is blocked by a privileges conquered as a result of a long history of violence and mistakes by certain classes, which, in addition to intellectual technical superiority, which they enjoy as a result and of these privileges, also dispose of armed forces recruited among the subject classes and use them when they necessarily think of another notification. Sorry for that sound. I'll actually look into like how to mute those things. I use them as when they necessary without scruples or restraint. This is why revolution is necessary in a video game. Revolutions destroy the state of violence in which we live in now and creates the means for peaceful development and towards ever greater freedom, greater justice, and solidarity. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Since like it brought up what does anarchism mean? What that user is saying? No, it doesn't. Because that's the lack of like clean water, air, and like clean power, and like the lack of food. It happens in this country right now, where there's a state. And how I see in anarchism, it just means no rulers, because like how a monarchy, one ruler, anarchy is no rulers. Yeah, exactly. And there's my like social media links, since where I consider that person was also saying to like, if you're leftist, don't vote, but if you're conservative, vote. Yeah. But anarchy is basically no unjust coercive hierarchies of will. Like the capitalism is a coercive unjustifiable hierarchies. Yes, no rules, only pizza. That's a good point, Naz, because not that pizza rules all, but pizza is it's okay. It's okay. I enjoy your presence. As other forms of coercive unjustifiable hierarchies, patriarchy, which is why all anarchists are feminists. Because if you are a consistent an anarchist, then you have to be a feminist. Some even go as far as to say that their feminism is so important to the anarchists that they call themselves anarcho-feminists and their comrades. I think it's a redundancy in terms, but hey, maybe some people will be more open to anarchists than you said you're a feminist, so anarcho-feminist is cool. White supremacy, ableism, colonialism, imperialism, definitely the cis-hetero patriarchy, well, I mentioned patriarchy, but the cis-hetero normacy and supremacy definitely are like course of unjustifiable hierarchies, and the state is one. So that's what's anarchist in it. It's not, doesn't mean chaos and mayhem and anarchy. I mean, I think I see anarcho-feminism as like anarchists who want to like put forth like their feminism as like anarchists as well. So it's just a label, honestly, and I'm comfortable with anyone that have how they like label themselves. conservatives, anarchists want to destroy our communities. Anarchists, hey guys, we want to get some help setting up a mutual aid station. We're going to be distributing food, clothing, blankets, and personal care items, and important information to the wildfire evacuees today, and we'll need all hands on deck. Yes, that's exactly what anarchists do. They, as much as they can, to their ability, either advocate for or participate in programs like mutual aid disaster relief, as I already mentioned. Net hiccup. Am I still streaming? Okay. I'm still streaming, so it's maybe just refresh it. What? I'm still streaming, so it's oh damn it. What is happening? Okay. Yeah, there's a net hiccup, and I don't know what that's all about. So, it looks like I'm back. Yep, it seems to be fine now. That does happen from time to time with my internet connection. So, okay, good. Where was I thinking about things? But yeah, as you just said, Daffy. Yeah, maybe it's a Twitch, just being a Twitch, but everyone's still here. I still have 7 viewers. Thank for all coming. But as we were saying before, as I hit my mic, that that's probably the best way that anarchists actually spread the thing, not just be all for the revolution, which I still think is necessary and maybe has to be violent in a video game, but that helping out the community to build stronger communities, to bond up, kind of like that tactics as Taffy alluded to, is that's the best way to do that. It's best as well as we're helping out the community, strengthening the community, and bonding with the community. Then we can get them to our ideas. And for Americans, I have to remember this too. It's probably best to just talk about the ideas and the principles and policies instead of the labels, because yes, when I say socialism, it's just you get some glazed eyes when you mention communism and socialism and anarchism. That's a word. But anyway, but that's probably the best way to build numbers, as it were, to help the communities out. So back to the essay. What should the anarchist tactics be before, during, and after the revolution? No doubt censorship would be forbid us to say what needs to be yeah, that's a good point. Labels don't feel people. What needs to be done before the revolution in order to prepare. That's a good point. That's a good. Don't need labels. There's not that much good nutrition in labels. Only in certain circumstances would it be actually okay to eat books, but you have to already be a wizard to be able to eat a book and then gain all that knowledge. And a label has decent information, sometimes. Anyway, no doubt censorship would forbid us to say what needs to be done before the revolution in order to prepare for it and to carry it out. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're just talking about say the list of political words that Americans are denied from using because they don't know what they mean. That's part of why it's maybe best not to label ourselves. But if people ask, well, what's your political idea? Well, are you liberal? No, I'm not a liberal. Anarcho-syndicalist. That's what I am. And yeah, that's probably why so many activist organizations don't use them. I think it's just that is a tactic too. I actually got a suggestion that at the end of my Google Doc of charity links that on the bottom is just would you like some ideas of how to help to prevent all these people from being in those situations? And then I'll link to another Google Doc where pretty much I'm just teaching them about my ideology, as it were, or my idea of future, as it were, kind of priming them to be open to like socialism and communism and anarchism. But honestly, for like the millennials, a lot of them are already open to like socialism as a were, or at least an alternative to like our current capitalist system. So I think a lot of people are already primed. And yeah, yes, Taffy is just an anarchist wolf, but you're a good wolf. People give head pats to like Taffy, she once said. Awful cuddles, and true for everyone in here. I don't mind a cuddle pile happening in my chat room. But anyway, I'll go back to the essay. I know that censorship would forbade us to say what needs to be done before the revolution. Hence why Sorry Freak Regulation 46A, which I have to remember as well, no uncoded messages over open channels. Twitch is an open channel, as well as Facebook and Twitter and all those places, and even Discord, in order to prepare for it and to carry it out. In any case, it is a subject badly handled in the presence of the enemy. It is, however, valid to point out that we need to remain true to ourselves, to spread the word and to educate as much as possible, and avoid all compromises with the enemy, and to hold ourselves ready, at least in spirit, to seize all opportunities that might arise. And during the revolution, let me begin by saying that we can't make the revolution on our own, nor would it be desirable to do so, unless the whole of the country is behind it together. With all the interests, both actual and latent, and of the people, the revolution will fail. Then something, ACAB, something. I see, yeah. I think that's just like a reference to something. And insofar from probable cases that we achieve a victory on our own, we should find, I think this is where the page is getting caught off a little bit. Find ourselves in a absurd, untenable position, either because by the very fact of imposing our will and commanding on and constraining, we would cease to be anarchists and destroy the revolution by our authoritarianism, or because, on the contrary, we would retreat from the fields, leaving others with aims opposed to our own to profit from our efforts. So, we should act together with all progress forces and vanguard parties to attract the masses of the people into the movement and arouse their interest, allowing the revolution, of which we would form a part, among others, to yield what it can. This does not mean that we should renounce our specific aims. On the contrary, we should have to keep closely united and distinctly separate from the rest in fighting in favor of our program. The abolishment of political power and expropriation of the capitalists. And if, despite our efforts, new forms of power were to arise that seek to obtuse the people's initiative and impose their own wills, we must have no part in them, never give them any recognition. We must endeavor to ensure that the people refuse them the means of governing. Refuse them, that is, the soldiers and the revenue, and see to it that those powers remain weak, until the day comes when we can crush them once and for all. Yeah, I remember that. I feel bad for you, Lynn, but like, that happened. But we're all here and care for you and love for you, Lynn, so... Anyway, we may lay claim to and demand which forces, if needs be, our full autonomy and the right and the means to organize ourselves as we see fit to put our own methods into practice. After the revolution, that is, after the fall of those in power and the final triumph of the forces of insurrection. This is where gradualism becomes particularly relevant. We may pay attention to the practical problems of life. Groups and those who retain a belief in authority between communist collectives and individualists between the cities and the countryside. Yeah, that is, yep. Salty Jaded, the Wolfus is salty, jaded, and angry about that. We must make sense. We must make sure to use to our advantage the forces of natures and raw materials, and that we intend to industrials and agricultural distributions. According to the conditions prevailing at the time in the various different countries, public education, childcare, and care for the handicapped, help and the medical services, protections both against and common criminality for those more insidious who continue to attempt to suppress the freedom of others in the interest of individuals and parties, etc. The solution to each problem must not only be the most economic, viable ones, but must respond to the imperatives of justice and liberty and be those most willing to keep open the way of the future improvements. If necessary, justice, liberty, and solidarity must take priority over economic benefit. Yes, people over profits. I say get rid of profits altogether, but that was going to take a long time for people to come around to that. I'll do my best to convince them to not be in favor of profits in general because capitalism sucks. But until then, we must ensure that people have food, housing, and education and all that good stuff. So I'll continue. There is no need to think of terms of destroying everything in the belief that these things will look after themselves. Our present civilization is the result of thousands of years of development and has found some means of solving the problems of how millions and millions of people cohabitate and often crowd together in restricted areas, and how they ever increasingly and ever more complex needs can be satisfied. Such benefits are reduced, and for the great majority of people virtually denied, due to the fact that the development has been carried out by authoritarian means, and in remove, the real gains remain. The triumphs of humankind over the adverse forces of nature, the accumulated weight of the experiences of past generations, the social mobility habits acquired throughout the long history of human collaboration, the proven advantages of mutual aid. It will be foolish, and besides impossible, to give up all of this. In other words, we must fight authoritarians and privilege while taking advantage from the benefits that society has conferred. We must not destroy anything that satisfies human needs, however badly, until we have something better to put in place. So, I think right here, I kind of read that as listen, anti-civies, anti-civilization anarchists. Sorry, we're not gonna deindustrialize the world. There are benefits to the industrialization, as it has improved things and it gives great benefits to those. The only problem is right now is who organized those things, not the industrializing revolution itself. This is what. Okay. This is why I say screw anarcho-criminalists, because yeah, if you follow their logical ends or their idealized futures of where the life expectancies go to the floor, screws over disabled people who need the medications and advancements in medicines that happen, and it's ableist. Anarcho-criminalism, which is a form of anarchism that wants to bring humanity back to hunter-gatherer times, or have all of humanity live as hunter-gatherers, that would be detrimental to a lot of people, because the earth cannot sustain the population that we currently have if everyone reverts back to hunter-gatherer scavengers kind of societies. Even though some of those societies, there's some places where that's how people function quite well, but they also have not been introduced to society as large, as it were. And they want it that way, and I think we respect that. That's not ideal for everyone. Not only because I'm selfish and I love my tablets, I love my computer, I love my video games. But also, there's many great benefits for people to live a flourishing life with the technologies that we have. The problem is who's in charge and how they distribute all of that to only the people then can fork up the money when many people can't. And also, and how they deny human rights and workers' rights in those places where the raw materials needed are mined. So, it's all about the people on top of how they do that, and not of civilization or industrialization as it is. I know some people that are just want to like cancel all the advancements from the Industrial Revolution and revert back to pre-industrialized kind of world. No, we cannot unplug the whole grid of the planet, even though maybe it's the best way to like green up the whole thing. That's where. But anyway, but I don't think Errico Malatesta would agree with that statement. I swear. Anyway, intransigent as we remain of any forms of capitalist imposition or exploitation, we must be tolerant of all those social concepts that prevail in various human groupings, so long as they do not harm the freedom and equal rights of others. We should content ourselves with gradual progress while the moral level of people grow, and with it the material and intellectual means available to mankind, and while clearly doing all we can through study, work, and propaganda to hasten development through our higher ideals. And if hopefully you can see here, it's a bit like cut off here, so I'm going to like fiddle with this. Okay, and see, it's just like changed all the things, but it's like, and so but I'm going to be sure to be able to read the rest of it. Anyway, I'm here to have come up with more problems than solutions, but that's such weird way, but what? Okay, I'm probably not going to use this app. I kind of figured out a better solution because I literally did like skip actually a lot. Yeah, I skipped actually the sentence. Anyway, but I believe I have scripturally present the criteria which meant guide us in the search of applications and solution, which all will, let's say, I'm going to change it again like that, switch to that. But which will certainly be many and very accordingly to circumstances, but so far as we are concerned, there may also be the consensus with the formality principles of anarchism. No one orders anyone else around. No one exploits anyone else. It is the task of all comrades to think and study and prepare, and to do so with all speeds and thoroughly, because the times are dynamic. We must be ready for what might happen. And that is the end of Errico Malatesta's Gradualism. I'm going to like transition back over to just chatting, so you're going to see a lot more of my face, and you see some accoutrements of my room. You're not seeing the floor because it's like dirty and messy, and I don't clean that at all. But yes, as you can see in the corner over there, that is a bow staff. That's a practice katana with the pink tag on it. That is a sword. Down there, you don't see it as well, but the top of it, that's basically like a pair of sais that I have. Now, the thing about like gradualism, as my comrade Captain Andy has like said, his problem with like gradualism is that this was actually kind of like a gradualism that's in people proponents, status quo warriors, as were talked about or said that like. For in the case of like people's like prejudices, like or discriminations, like racism, white supremacy, like cisgender patriarchy, that sort of thing, people advocate for gradual attains other than like I guess against like pulling up people's bigotry as well. And a friend Captain Andy's response to that in criticism of gradualism is that the time it takes for all those racists and all those like bigots and all those white supremacists to finally realize that their white supremacy is wrong is not your time to give. This was all in a video that he made over a year ago when the separation between families happening at the border just had started happening, and he was like demanding kind of like more quick and instant change for that, while it's like others said like, no, you gotta like wait for the racists to stop being racist, essentially. But the time for that to happen is not your time to give. There are people suffering on the system as it were right now that need much more quicker change, like the people still in concentration camps right now, that would need to like be able to like change those and not wait for like white supremacists to stop being white supremacists. Also, I think the best way, another way that he describes or solidifies all of his criticisms for gradualism in one sentence is that gradualism is the privilege dictating the pace and speed of change. And they always argue for slow incremental change, and which is why they're against revolution. Because also when they think of revolution, despite the American Revolution, or they'll probably think of the French Revolution, but only think of French Revolution as the terror. Not saying that I advocate for the terror at all. No, but besides, because like only in a video game if ever, and not really, and Starfleet Regulation 46A, but people are against revolution much more being conditioning, as were in Dark Nation, and how it's like the American government actually right after their revolution kind of just made it a law against revolution. Yes, we just like we just emancipated ourselves from the British colonies and British Parliament, but you guys can't do that because we're in charge now, in a way. And so people do not want the fast, harsh, or rash change, as it were, of what the leftists advocate for. Plus, also they don't know what society, like a anarcho-communist society, would look like or how that'd be like. So they're kind of afraid of the unknown, which is why they advocate for the gradual change, which. It seemed like Errico Malatesta is not completely against, because there's can be usefulness of that, but it's not the end all be all, I think. That's how kind of I read that essay. That's where. And so, that's about